Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my little corner of the interwebs. For today's video, we're going to be diving straight in head first into a first impressions because Nomad Cosmetics has released their first palette of the year, and it is their New Zealand Stargazing palette. Now, mine did arrive a little bit late, so this video is going up after the palette has already launched, but that's okay, that's fine. So you know how we typically do over here. I'm gonna give you guys some product details, some swatches. I'm gonna demo 2 looks for you guys to see what it looks like on my complexion. And then I'm just gonna wrap things up with some overarching thoughts. One other thing that I did include in this video, or will include in this video, is I'm gonna do some comparisons to this palette and the Nomad Royal Europe palette, because this is actually a palette that includes multi-chromes. And I want you guys to see if there's any similarities as you are deciding whether or not to pick up the palette. So again, this is the Nomad Cosmetics New Zealand Stargazing palette. Oh, I should say this. If this is your first time watching me, welcome. I'm Jamila. I love all things beauty, and here in my little corner of the interwebs, I like to focus on how to get high-end luxury and indie makeup at the best prices, sharing all of my tips and tricks because I don't believe in paying full price makeup. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, if it tickles your pickle, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join the fam. Now, back to the first impressions video. Let's start, of course, with some product details. So this is the Nomad Cosmetics New Zealand Stargazing palette. This is it straight out of the box. So it does have a little bit of information on the back, and the box has the exact same kind of packaging. I will say that this is probably the most boring packaging I've seen from Nomad. Yeah, because if you've seen some of their past palettes, for example, Royal Europe had a really beautiful sort of paper cutout design that I thought was super intricate. The Okavango palette had this sort of felt tip, this felt material kind of resembling that of like animal skin. So not exactly the cutest packaging, but I'm not mad at it. As with all Nomad palettes, you do get a little postcard that includes product details. So let's go ahead and dive into what it says. So the destination: looking up at the New Zealand night sky, millions of stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies come to life as night deepens and true darkness closes in. Stargazing on this breathtaking island country with otherworldly landscapes is a transcendent and humbling experience. Surrounded by the radiant southern lights, spiraling Milky Way, and the infinite cosmos, you feel a part of the greater universe and realize we are all made of star stuff. So the palette: dark and dazzling, a color story of depth and lightness with deep space shades of blue, black, and purple surrounding illuminating celestial hues and colorful southern lights. 9 stellar mattes and 6 twinkling multichromes inspired by the take your breath away stargazing in New Zealand. And the cause: we are proud to support Dark Sky International that works to restore the nighttime environment and protect habitats from light pollution. Cool. As you know, 5% of the proceeds of the Nomad palettes are donated to a specific charity. So this is this beautiful palette. I'm turning off some of my ring lights so you guys can get a more accurate view of the palette. But it is winter time here, so I do try to film with a little bit of extra light, so it's not super dark. But here we have the palette. You get those 6 multichromes, and then the rest are mattes. Now this palette has a 12-month shelf life, was made in the Nomad Labs in China, and is vegan and cruelty-free. And if you are curious about the ingredients, they're listed on the side of the box, which honestly I wish they made this bigger because it's very, very hard to see. And then at the very bottom, the last line, it tells you which shades are not technically eye safe. Nomad is one of those brands that does use pressed pigments, which we all know the US has not caught up on that yet. But if you have an allergy or if you're sensitive to pigments, that's where you'll find that information. And it might be on the Nomad website as well. So in terms of, so that's basically the product details, with just 2 other things I want to mention. This palette launches on the 16th of January. This video is going to go up after the palette launches. I apologize. Mine came in late. And it's going to retail for $59 USD. But there are a number of affiliated and non-affiliated codes out there. I do have an affiliated code with Nomad. It's Jamila, which means that if you shop through it, you will get 10% off and I will make a small commission. Totally not required at all. And you can use creators who have non-affiliated codes if you're not comfortable with that. But just don't pay full price, you guys. And one thing the brand did say is that this is currently not a limited edition palette and it will be available for at least 12 months. So if you want to wait for a deeper discount, a bigger sale, hey, I think there are a couple holidays around the corner. So yeah, that's it. All right, now let's go ahead and dive into the demos and we will pop back up at the end for some final thoughts. Okay, so let's dive into look number 1. This is the palette in pristine condition. I just wanted to show you guys this for like a second before we destroy this. I haven't swatched it or anything yet, so I'm really going into this first look blind. To kick things off, let's start off with this matte shade. It's called Southern Lights. I'm going to use that as my transition shade, popping that into the crease. So cold, baby. You say you love me, then you hate me. How do I let it happen? You build me up and tear me into tiny pieces every single time. You've got me all tied up. You've got your hands around. In true Nomad fashion, these mattes are beautiful, soft, blendable, buttery. Now, I just wiped off my brush a little bit, and now I'm going to go into this shade up top. It's called Auckland Stardome. Hope I pronounced that right. And I'm plopping that right underneath that first shade, just to start deepening things up a bit. Now, I want to go into the outer V, and one thing that's interesting about this palette is that the deep shades are purple, blue, and then like a teal blue color. So, not really options to keep this kind of neutral, which... Or you could use black, which is kind of intense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the deep blue shade. It's called Carter Observatory, and I'm going to use that as my outer V color. I'm going to start by stamping that in and then just blending. You've got this captivating touch that's got me coming back for more. I'm crying out for help. Do you hear me screaming? Lying on the floor, hanging from the ceiling now. Are you gonna let me die? Oh no, this brush isn't doing what I need it to do. Let me switch. Can't deny the pain, but gotta love the feeling. How are you gonna save me now? You got me up. Now for the shimmers, I want to go into Jewel Box because I think this is the most neutral shade. Oh, it's like a beautiful gold, and I'm gonna plop that right into the center of the lid. Wow. This captivating touch that's got me coming back for more. I'm crying out for help. Do you hear me screaming? Lying on the floor, hanging from the ceiling now. And you know me, I like to have an inner shimmer as well, but I'm trying to decide between this one and this one. Like in the pan, you can't really tell what they look like, so let's just swatch these. Ooh. So we have Magellanic Clouds, I think that's what it is, and then Aurora Australis, which is this one. So Magellanic Ooh, wait, damn, this looks completely different, but also it looks exactly like what I have on my eyes, which is interesting. See, blue, okay, and then the other shade, which is, so Aurora Australis, and then the Magellanic Clouds. Now, considering that I think this one is going to be very similar to what I already have on the eyes, I think I want to go into the pink-ish leaning, the pink-blue leaning one, because I think it would actually tie the mattes together really nicely. So let's do that one on the lids. So that is this one right here. That pink hue. Just gonna plop that into the inner third of the eye. How do I let it happen? You build me up and tear me into tiny pieces every single time. Obviously with multi-chromes you literally could have just picked one and put it all over the lid, but I'm trying to try as much as I can for you guys. Okay, this is what the eyes are looking like right now. Let me go ahead and finish up the rest of my face, clean everything up, and I'll come back and show you guys the first look. This captivating touch that's got me coming back for more, Okay, so I'm back and this is look number 1. And she's cute. Like, it's definitely really pretty. Interesting. I feel like I'm not 100% sure about these multi-chromes. They're definitely a little bit of a more powdery feel than I think I expected. And it does make for a softer look though. It makes for a softer, not as crazy sparkly multi-chrome look. But let's go ahead and dive into look number 2 and then I'll come back and kind of wrap up my overarching thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with look number 2. So you will know, we gotta play with this blue because it's stunning. I need to wash my brushes again. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start off with this Tongariro night hike, which is kind of like a gray taupey shade, and I want to use that as my transition. Well, my first transition color for this look. Every time it's healing, can't deny the pain. But God, I love the feeling. How are you gonna save me now? You got me upside up. Then I'm gonna go into the center shade, the Cosmos, and I'm gonna start to deepen things up. That one is a really beautiful blue-gray shade. I'm just gonna put that right underneath. Let me go. You got this captivating touch that's got me coming back for more. It's interesting that these are kind of blending together to become the same shade. Next, I'm gonna go into the blue shade. This is called Tikapo Stargazing. I'm gonna take a little bit of that. And I'm gonna like kind of plop that into the outer V. And then wiping that off, I'm gonna go into the purple shade Auraki Mackenzie. And that's also gonna go into this outer V area right here. I wanna let you in to my... And now for the star of the show, we're gonna go into the multi-chrome. This is called the Milky Way. That is so beautiful. Where the chemicals collide. We're just plopping that into the center of the lid. Lighting the midnight sky. Looking through a kaleidoscope, the colors seem to change. Okay, and then for the inner part of the eye, I'm gonna go into this Magellanic Clouds. I don't think that's how I pronounce that, but doing my best. Like, it looks super blue in the pan, but then it has this copper to it when you put it on the lids. And I wonder if it's like this on my complexion, but looks differently on other skin tones. Genuinely curious. And as with like my first impressions videos, I don't watch anybody else's before I do these because I don't want it to cloud my assessment for the most part. Okay, so you guys see the vision. I'm gonna go ahead and clean things up and then I'll come back and show you guys the final look. Okay guys, I'm back and this is the second and final look for today's first impressions video on the new Nomad Stargazing palette. And I guess you can already tell. I like it. I think it's cute. I think that this is really, really pretty. I love the way the looks turned out. Just to let you guys know, what I did for my waterline is I went in with the blue and the purple shade, and then I took this purple multi-chrome and I put that into the inner part of the eye. So that's where we are. For the rest of my face, just so you know, I'm using my Marc Jacobs foundation. I guess this is a foundation concealer thing that doesn't exist anymore, so I don't know why I'm spending time on it. My Tom Ford concealer, which is almost done, and I'm like, this was 60 bucks. I feel like it should have lasted longer. My LYS bronzer, along with my, what blush am I wearing? I'm wearing my old MAC blush with my Bare Minerals Gen Nude blush in the shade Peachy Keen, which is one of my favorites. And for my highlighter, I'm wearing my Dior Quad. I think this is 001 Universal. And for my lips, I'm wearing a brown lip liner. I'm trying to remember which one. I think it might be Bar from Morphe. Yeah, so I think it's Bar from Morphe. And I'm wearing Taylor from Sydney Grace. Love me some Sydney Grace, you know. Yes, Taylor. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let me tell you guys about the palette. I do think that this is an absolutely beautiful release from Nomad Cosmetics, with a couple of just like thoughts sprinkled in here. So let's start with the mattes. I think the mattes are absolutely stunning, really blendable, really nice. I was surprised when I put these two mattes together that they kind of blended into the same shade. So I did not see the amount of differentiation that I hoped with those two mattes. And I also kind of wish that there was just a standard deep brown matte to give us the option for something that was a little bit more neutral. One thing that you will see with this palette is that the deep shades are all sort of these dark, colorful shades of dark purple, dark blue, and then you have a black. So with this palette, if you are somebody that wants to get a neutral look, you're not really gonna get it with this one. So I personally like to have the option to have both color and neutral in a palette. But this is one that's just kind of more on the colorful side, which is, I'm fine with it. You know, I'm not mad at it at all whatsoever. But when it comes to the mattes, they were buildable, they were blendable, no issues whatsoever. The multi-chromes, they're nice. They're different in terms of how I think we tend to think of multi-chromes in the indie community. Because typically multi-chromes are very creamy, very wet, because they like to have that extra reflective, extra sparkly look. And I feel like the multi-chromes in this palette are a little bit on the dry side. Not dry as in crusty or crumbly or anything like that, but dry in that they sit into they melt into the lids really well. I feel like they have this very sort of soft shine and appearance to it, which I think is actually better for textured lids, people with hooded eyes, people who have issues with oily lids and they get creasing from some of those indie shadows. I think that this is a better like formula for you because it is a drier formula and it just kind of like melts into the lids. I really like how this looks. Now in terms of the sort of flip and the shine, I do think that it has a nice sort of like multi-chrome shiftiness to this. It's definitely not the brightest or the most impactful shift, but I do think it is one that is apparent and just a little bit more subtle. I think that this gives you a nice gradient because I feel like a lot of times when it comes to multi-chromes, it's like either super duper sparkly or not really much. I feel like this is a nice in between if you are somebody that doesn't want to go all the way yet. But overall, I really like this. The multi-chromes that they chose are pretty standard multi-chrome shifts, so nothing special to write home about. I am going to insert some swatch comparisons of this palette with the Royal Europe palette so you can see the difference between the multi-chromes. I just haven't done any swatches yet, so I will do that.
My life is a prism. and every color seems to fall into my world. In love with a girl who makes it easier to say. My life is a prison, and every color paints the miracle I live. My life is a prison, and I wanna let you in.
Anyways, so this palette is available now. It is, I'm not sure what the price is. I'll put it up here, but you can get 10% off using my code Jamila. It is affiliated, which means that if you shop, I will get a small kickback. So just wanted to let you guys know that. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking this one up. And if you don't want to write a comment, don't have time for a comment, let's leave stars, you know, like a star emoji, because it is the Stargazing palette. So go ahead and leave a little star emoji down in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way out so that you always know when I upload a new video. And I thank you guys again so much for watching. I appreciate you so much more than you know. And I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!